you better say that. The best talk show, you better say that. The guests on the show, you better say that. Give knowledge and hope, you better say that. Outsider, that's the host, you better say that. Spread love and faith, you better say that. God steer away the hate, you better say that. We all gonna be great, you better say that. Work out passion, not pay, you better say that. Oh yeah, you better say that, say that. Oh yeah, you better say that. Oh yeah, you better say that. You better say that. The best talk show, you better say that.
Welcome to the You Better Say That talk show. I'm Pastor Fears, sitting in for my sister, Apostle Alzada Florence. We have with us today Pastor Michael Stiggers, First Lady Stiggers, and Prophetess Verlinda White. And today we're going to continue with part 2 of grief and mental health. So our first question for the panel today is there a set pattern for expressing grief?
I like to start off by saying yes, and no. But usually, and classic grief starts with shock. And after shock, you may go into denial. Persons may try to bargain with God. Guilt, shame, blame, anger, even disorientation. People may not be able to organize themselves. A whole host of things that we go through. But then all of those things can happen, and it can still be part of the normal grieving process.
For that individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like to kind of add something to that.
Okay.
Depending on what happened, how did that loss occur, and not necessarily because someone died, but whatever the loss was, what that person's state of mind or their functioning level when something does occur. And my experience in mental health and with substance use is if somebody is high and they're told that there's a loss of whatever that is, their response may be totally different from a person who may be sober.
Yes.
I've known people that at times they may become more, how can I say, comical. And I know this sounds strange.
Yes.
But that's a way of them trying to deal with the lost. I'm a very comical person. My husband is too. And when I lost my mother, even though the initial shock, thank you, Pastor, the initial shock was there. But after that, I immediately started thinking about, because I guess in my mind, I'm always thinking, I want to be sure everyone else is fine. And a lot of times it's like that. So I think the way we maybe grieve it, like you said before, there are different ways that people do so. And I know sometimes some people can be very comical about it, and then people wonder, well, why are they that? But that is how they're dealing with that initial.
And just to add, everybody grieves. No two persons grieve the same.
I was about to chime in to say that.
Yeah.
Because what I hear y'all saying is it depends on the individual. So it can vary depending on the person.
Sure.
Okay. Well, the next question is going to kind of be a segue from what we just came from, is that what is the difference in grieving for a dad, a mom, or a friend as opposed to a pet or loss of a job, or if somebody's invested in the stock market, it declines? What is there a difference in the grieving with those things? Who would like to?
I'd like to say something
Okay.
real quick, fast,
come on.
in a hurry on that.
Okay.
There are people who care more for their pets than they do their family and friends. And that's not to cast any light on anybody for feeling the way they do, but there are a lot of families who get really upset because when the wheel gets red, everything goes to the cat, Puss in Boot, or to the dog Fido, and they get zipped. And that's because that's what they decided, or that's what they decided they wanted to do with their assets. And that happens, so people, it depends on where their affections are.
Gotcha.
And I think, to me, to hear that, I would think that a person, something somewhere in the relationship with the human beings in their lives, there was some kind of detachment for someone. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know people can have this whatever feeling they have for a pet, but I feel like they have some form of detachment somewhere along the way with that family member for a person to decide that they would not, in that instance that she was saying, would not leave anything, so to speak, to a loved one, a family member.
So there's some underlying issues.
Some underlying
that was
issue
not addressed.
could have been some underlying
Yes,
issues
okay.
that were never resolved.
Well, it depends on what a person deem as valuable.
Okay.
What may be valuable to Sister White may not be as much value to me. It may be valuable for her to go on a trip when I'm used to staying at home and with a book, and that's valuable to me. So the pet, the job, the job may represent much value because that's the livelihood of the entire family.
Yes.
So that loss would be as extreme as losing a relative or a loved one.
I like to also mention too about the stock market. Stock market.
Okay.
Back during the time when there was the great market crash, people killed themselves, and they still do. You know, when there are losses, they can't see beyond that loss. Where do I go from here? Or you know, people have put up a lot, put in a lot, and they gamble on their return, and they don't get it, and people are depending on them, their family and such. So those losses will also determine how that person reacts. And you did mention about the people versus the things, and those, but it depends. And Sister Stiggers mentioned a little bit about the relationship. Every loss of a family member isn't a loss to some people because they may have been in an abusive relationship, or you know, whether it was domestic violence, or they may have been victim of incest. It could be a number of things. So you know, and this is being transparent for a moment.
Right.
Yes.
As a young girl, I was sexually violated, and this man who did it, I never talked about it. I never talked about it until I was an adult. But I can remember that he died. I didn't kill him. He died.
Okay.
He died in a very compromising situation. He died in a car. The gas fumes, asphyxiation, I think that's what it's called. And people in the community were so sad about him passing.
Yes.
But I was rejoicing in a sense because in my mind he can't hurt anybody anymore.
Yes.
So but nobody knew that I was dealing with a loss a different way. And so I think it's really important that we have these conversations because the expectation when people go to visit, especially us being in ministry, we may have opportunities to, quote, minister to people who have suffered losses. And someone sitting quietly over here may be dealing with something else besides the fact that mom is gone or dad is gone or older brother is gone or older sister. It may have been some conflict that we are totally not aware of.
And let me just say, as a part of dealing with these issues, I am so sorry that happened to you.
Thank you.
Me too.
Thank
And
you.
just like that, we can sometimes say the right thing versus the wrong thing.
Yes. Okay. We're going to pause for a commercial break, and we'll be right back.
You better say that. The best.
Hello, my name is Alzada Florence, and I am the pastor of Fellowship of Faith Christian Center in the great city of Opelika, Alabama. I want to take the time to invite you to our 24th church anniversary on Sunday, November the 12th at 1:30 p.m. Our special guest is Bishop Demetrius Griffin, all the way from Hatchet Springs Church Worship Center in Goodwater, Alabama. This year, our theme is God's Grace. God has graced us to be here for 24 years, and we want to give him the glory due his name. So, hey, I'll see you there. Be there or be square. You better say that. The best talk show, you better say that.
Welcome back to the You Better Say That talk show. You know what? I want to add this. When we talk about grief and mental health, it is normally something that the church doesn't feel comfortable talking about. And if people were more educated on how to grieve or mental health, I think it would be more acceptable in the community. But since we shy away from it, it becomes difficult for people to just deal with it individually. Then I'm going to segue again into another question by saying, when we are consoling people during the grieving process, should we or should we not say certain things? Is there certain things we shouldn't say, or is there certain things we should say? Who want to elaborate first?
Both. But I like to say in the church, since you mentioned the church.
Okay.
So with the church, spirituality is a big source of people's relief for everything.
Yes.
It's a source and a resource at the same time.
Okay.
So I thank God for my relationship with God that helps me deal with all things such as mental health, my mental well-being, and my grief as well. So as we said, people lose money, then want to take their own lives. But then when we look at the spiritual sense of it, the spiritual realm of it, what does it profit me to gain the whole world and turn around and lose my soul? My soul becomes more valuable than any amount of money that I could ever make or dream of having.
And I think also that because a lot of people in ministry don't know how to minister
Have mercy. Thank
to
you.
persons who are dealing with grief, and the expectation of well, you need to be in church. That's where you need to be. And you know, saints ain't supposed to be doing all of this. You already know this
Church
what we
might have
need
been
to
the
do.
abuser.
Goodness.
The church was the say it. I know you know it.
And so it's really important that we be very mindful of things to say and not say. And oftentimes it's not discussed, all the things that the family may be dealing with, because many time in ministry, ministry has mouth. Has mouth. You know they didn't have no insurance.
You better say that.
They didn't have no insurance. But you're supposed to be ministering to me. If I don't have it, what can you do to help me? And we can talk about this later. That's something that you do before time. You start educating your church on how to plan. We gon' unless the Lord come back and get us, we're gonna go by the grade. And one of the things that churches can do is start educating people on insurance and those kind of planning things. So
just to make them conscious that it is going to happen, and but you are prepared.
And not leave the property to 7 children.
Yes,
I shouldn't say it's 7, but
because
I got 7.
It could be a truth though.
It's a truth. It's a truth because there's no telling where those 7 are in their relationship with one another at the time of death. And so it ends up that no one can agree on anything, and someone else finally or gets to and seeks to own that property that has been in the family for years and years. These are things that we must talk about in our church. One of the pet peeves of mine, which was also something very personal to me when I was a teenager, when my sister died, when she was killed by a drunk driver. The language of the church. God does not make mistakes.
Come on.
So in my 14-year-old mind, my adolescent mind, you mean to tell me God prepared the drunk to come down the road and hit my sister and my niece while they were on their bicycle? No, I couldn't wrap my head around that. But I found out something years later. God will be with you.
Yes, He will.
His being with us.
You better say that.
Was so much more of much value to me than telling me that God doesn't make a mistake. So he meant for this to happen when we live in a broken world.
Yes.
Bad things happen
Yes.
to some good folk.
Yes.
And sometimes we see some good things happen to some bad folk.
Exactly.
But there's other language too. I know we had just thought about that right before we left home, and there's several things that we should say, but we can say them another way. Can you expound upon that?
Well, I'll just share one or two. You know, you've always heard that saying, said they're in a better place.
Yes.
People always tell you that. People often say this in connection with the spiritual beliefs that they're in a better place. But they have to understand they want their loved one in heaven or a better place, and this comment may not be exactly comforting for them at that moment in time. But a better way to say, just say, I'm sorry, this is so tough for you.
Exactly.
See, if you say, I'm very sorry, this because you can see that this person is having a hard time.
Yes.
And you say, oh, they're in a better place. Well, you know, right now, I'm not even thinking about that better place right now.
Right.
Okay?
Because I'm hurting.
I'm hurting.
I'm
That's
grieving.
right.
I'm going through.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes,
So
yes,
those are a couple of things. And then you know when people say, let me know if you need anything.
Oh,
How many
that's a
times
big
you heard
one.
somebody
Yeah.
say,
Oh, yeah.
That's
let
a
me know
big
if you need anything. But be more specific.
Yeah.
You know, let me know if you need anything. A lot of times when I hear people say that, they'll say that in maybe just a loving way. It's like a cliche, but
And
they
a
never come back
leading way,
to do
a
it.
leading way
leave
too,
that
because
call.
they go right on
And
out
they go
the door
right on out the
without
way.
helping.
But it's
And
better
picking
if
up
they're
stuff.
more specific and say, hey, look, I'll come over here next week.
And we'll eat.
If I
Yeah.
come here next Tuesday or Thursday, I'll bring lunch.
Yeah.
Or we'll meet up together.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? That's more
Doing something
specific.
specific. Yes, yes.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
that person may even be relieved to say, you know, I do realize I do need a little help.
Yeah.
You see what I'm
And the
saying? I
help,
need a little help.
and the help is not just that moment.
That's right.
You
Yes,
know, when
yes.
people are grieving,
When people-
you know, I remember when my mom passed that week after she was gone, you know, after the service and all of that.
Yes.
I'm still going through. I'm
Yeah.
still adjusting. But I didn't need a whole lot of folk,
Right.
but I needed somebody.
Somebody.
You know?
Okay.
And sometimes
Yes.
it's just a listening ear,
Yes.
or, you know, and don't overdo things. Don't come stay in the night with folks, you know.
Yes, yes, yeah.
We got to teach people
Yeah.
how to minister.
You've been in my church.
Listen.
Okay.
And I know we got to move on.
Okay,
But
go-
my
go
mother
ahead.
passed away in May, and you know people were coming over. I had to find, okay, y'all, it is time for everybody to get some rest.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
In a kind-
we
yeah,
appreciate,
kind
you
way.
know, and I think those people, yeah, they did.
Yes.
I think they really understood because it was getting very late over in the over in the evening, and it was wonderful. But we say, we appreciate it, but it's about time, I think, for everybody to kind of get a little rest, and you know, and sometimes you have to do that. Now, maybe that was my way, you know.
Yeah.
Here I go again. Instead of thinking I'm thinking about everybody else, but that was my way.
That's
I
who
think
you are.
That's good though.
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
Well, I have
Because
to.
it was healthy for you.
It was healthy for
Because
me.
that's what you needed at that time.
I needed at that
Yes,
time.
yes.
Let me give voice and definition to
Yeah.
that person.
Okay.
That person is called a gatekeeper.
Okay.
Yes.
And many times with the congregation, based on what I see and what I hear as the pastor, the caregiver, and if I see where the family, you know, is one big family reunion, sometimes a week long of festivities where you have a caring person that has lost deeply.
Yes.
And the entire family gathers at that central place.
Yes.
That there's eating. It starts before lunch and it lasts all the
All
way
night long.
to 12 at night. And the person that is really grieving never gets the attention and never gets the care that they need.
Because you're almost hosting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
almost like
It
you're
is.
the host.
Hosting is
Yes.
it is a difficult, it is a tiring job
It is.
that every day you have to make sure everybody's taken care of because it's your house.
Yeah.
You're the host. You're automatically, you have been inferred upon, piled on the host. And so many times I will find one person that's not scared of anybody.
Yeah.
And I say, you got to be the gatekeeper. Do you love your mother? Do you love your sister? Yes, I do. You know I do, Reverend Stiggers. Listen, you be the gatekeeper. Sometime when the sun go down, and though you know those people need to go home, so the person that lives there can get some rest. You say, y'all, it's time to go.
Time to go.
That's right.
And ain't nobody gonna fuss with you. That's gatekeeping.
Yes, yes.
Gatekeeper don't mind.
Yeah, you can't do all this. Oh, you know,
They don't take hints.
You know,
those subtle little,
Yeah.
those,
You gonna have to be straight.
What us
My
got to
son
eat?
was that.
That's what else what us got to eat.
Yeah.
That's what they'll say. Yeah.
But what I hear the panel saying is this though, the church need conversation,
Education.
conversation, and to make it more acceptable in our community. Because if we shy away from it and we don't talk about it, we still leave people in the dark when we could kind of shed some light on like the grief and certain protocols that we should have when people are grieving. So if the church was taught that, we would be more prone to carrying out what we've been taught. But if we have not been taught that, we're going to just go what we normally do.
Well, let's start with who needs to teach this.
Well, we know where you're going with that.
First,
A lot of the ones who need to hear it.
first, a lot of the pastors
Yes.
and leaders need to be taught so that they can teach the others. Because, you know, we hear this cliche, practice what you preach.
Yes.
Okay? But you practicing what you're preaching, but you're not preaching what you need to be preaching so the folk can practice it.
Yes.
And that means that you got to be open to be taught.
Yes.
You know, and you may not be doing these things, but if you've not taught your members or your congregation, then those are the ones who show up at folk house and stay all evening, night, and all in folk refrigerators and this, that, and the other, you know, because they haven't been taught.
And that is mentally draining.
Yes, it
Very,
is.
On the
very.
person's with
Very.
the connection with the grief and mental, you know, is mentally draining.
Leads to what we call complicated grief. It's complicated by that situation. But as for me and my house, I put it in a sermon.
Yeah,
It can go in a sermon.
He does.
Yes. And you put it in there, and the people hear it.
They do.
Well,
Is that when Jesus-
I don't want
Go
to get
ahead.
off topic, but I hear you saying this then, that pastors need education
Sure.
so they
got a
can know what to
plan.
teach
Yes.
We got a plan.
to the congregation.
Yeah.
We
Amen.
got a plan.
Okay.
Pastor Stiggers gonna help with that, and you are too. You just been drafted.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lady Stiggers, you were about to make a comment.
Oh,
Come on.
no, I was just saying, if, for instance, in the Bible, when
Okay.
Jesus asked certain people to leave
Yeah, put 'em
the
out.
room and put them out, and he only wanted to put.
They were paid mourners anyway.
They were paid
yeah,
mourners
yeah.
anyway.
Get out.
Because a lot of times it's like that. It's some folks that come in and claim they mourning, but they looking for what they can get.
they can get.
Okay, so
Exactly.
you know, even in that sense, in the Word of God, we know that Jesus put them out, and He only needed the ones that needed to be there.
Yes.
More,
Go ahead.
I have to. More pastors need
Go ahead.
clinical pastoral education.
Amen.
Okay.
Clinical pastoral education teaches pastors this is how, not necessarily how to preach. This is how you affect people when you minister to them. That's a feedback that is so valuable. When we know that our care, our ministry is effective.
Yes.
If we don't know, we do harm not only to them but to ourselves as well.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
What about this question? When a loved one dies or passes away, and you have a certain family member who's screaming, falling on the floor, they're laying on the casket, they're just almost seem like it would be extra to some people. Would it be guilt or would it be grieving? Would y'all like to elaborate on?
It could be a
little,
both.
yeah.
Little bit
Well, I
both.
think we
It could be
can
both.
all
Little bit
agree.
both.
And I remember a family member just shaking the casket.
Okay.
You know, calling the person name. And immediately I recall how many times that person who was in the casket asked about that person. I don't ever hear from them. I don't ever, and it wasn't because they were far away
Okay.
geographically.
Yes, I'm saying.
They just did not, you know, come. And so, and they knew because they were asked, when you coming to see me? Now, they
Yes.
may have had legitimate reasons why they didn't come, because, you know, whatever and whatever. But it was very obvious that you got some issues. plus this person was under the influence. And usually that's how persons who feel guilty about something, they will, again, going back to my area of expertise with mental health and substance use, that's where you get a lot of folk at the actual service who are under the influence, and they act differently than persons who are sober.
Yes.
So that does have a big thing to do, with stuff. And, not around here, but we have heard and read of people shooting and fighting at, services and stuff.
Yes.
A lot of stuff can happen. Anger, sibling stuff. You didn't take care of Big Mama like we told you what to do, and then you didn't do it. And blame game, all kinds of stuff.
Blame is a part of that grief.
Yes.
The history of persons and the way they grieve. Now, some persons have a certain personality, and that personality goes with them everywhere they go. So that there is something that resonates with persons who may be looking and saying it's fake, or that's not who that true person is.
Okay.
But in grief, we have blame, and it can result in anger, which can also be a sign of some mental health issues going on with that person as well. So different people react in different ways.
And it's not always guilt. If you've been married to someone, all of your adult life, and you got 40, 50 years, and you see, your loved one there, you can't begin to fathom, how do I go on? And maybe you talked about, well, baby, I ain't going nowhere till you go somewhere, and so all of this, how do I go on? I just want to just go with you, and there are people, I really am appreciative of the services that a lot of the funeral homes have, where their workers actually go through counseling. And I want to shout out to Harris Funeral Home. I do not get any payment for this. Let me make sure y'all got that. But they were excellent in their care of our family when we lost my mom. And it was not just your let's come pick out the casket. It's, how are you today?
Yes.
We got lunch coming for you today. Wow. You need some extra chairs. Do you need to talk? Those kind of things. I appreciated those things. Those, it was like unheard of. Like, where y'all came from. But these are things that we need to be aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were concerned about your needs during the time of your
and long after that.
Yes.
Yeah.
One overflow of that grief, which me and my wife have experienced. Whenever you are, let's say, a leader, if you are a health care provider, if you are a pastor, if you are someone that cares for someone else, even the funeral home staff and officers, you are just right for blame and anger, because the person is already grieving the loss of mama, daddy, husband, wife, whoever that is. But then something that does not go their way, might be small and insignificant, or even a large thing, then all of that grief, all of that anger goes toward the pastor. There have been pastors that have lost churches because of a wrong decision or a wrong move. The whole family got mad with them.
You didn't preach them into heaven.
Exactly. And so
they live like hell, but you didn't preach them into heaven.
You better say that.
But people can bring that grief and place it. It's misplaced anger.
Yes.
Misplaced, but I am not the source of all of your frustrations.
Right.
Something happened some time ago that now you're blaming me, but I'm just right. Y'all didn't give mama a feeding tube. Mama couldn't eat, and she said, "Let me go."
Or you gave her one and it messed up.
Yes. Or in trying to keep her comfortable, giving her something for the pain, or granddad something for the pain. Y'all done killed granddad. And granddad he was already on hospice.
Yes.
He's on and 97 years old.
Yes. Yes.
We couldn't possibly have killed him.
What I hear you saying is this: people already have underlying issues. And when someone dies, it triggers some other things
That reaction.
that was underlying.
Right. And let me say this.
Go ahead.
I think sometimes, because I experienced that too. I don't mind saying my nephew, when my father passed away, my nephew, he was very close to my father. They hunt together and everything. And he was one of those that just, that's why sometimes personally, when people choose to the last glance, I choose not, because it brings up, that's why you have a visitation hour and stuff like that, so you can get all that out then. But I'm not saying this is against anybody to do.
Yes.
But anyway, he was just literally over. He literally was over in there, and it brought on other. What I'm saying is, I think in his mind, sometimes they think that person, it was the main person that may have been one that kept communication in some instance, kept communication, kept things open for relationship. Now that person is gone.
Yes.
So how am I going to have any kind of relationship
lost
with
right
anybody
there.
else?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And think about the church. The church, there was a time when the church promulgated this, the church fostered this, because at the end of the funeral, at the end of the program, when all the good words have been said, and we have noticed a change, a flip-flop in our generation.
Right.
They used to open the casket up at the end,
Yes.
which brought on all of those emotions and jumping in the casket, and I ain't going nowhere, and I can't live no more. Take me, Lord.
Yes.
And so that was very real. And now that we have get a glance before, or closed caskets
Yes.
during that day, visitation the day before,
Yes.
that has helped us
Yes.
Yes.
to do part of the normal grieving process.
That's right.
Instead of that which is abnormal, and which what people say. Now, if they say something in public and now they're trying to live it out, it begins to wear on them.
I want to make one quick, a little quick something with
Okay,
that.
go.
If a person was killed violently, and we see that so much now.
So many times.
We got another component that we got to be concerned about now, and that's the well-being of people who come. So now we have more police present, not because they're just leading the family,
Thank
the
you.
procession,
So true.
but they're
Thank
there
you so
to
much.
make sure that folks
Protection.
don't get killed.
That's right.
And it's sad, but it is so true. And it's
true.
not just something that happens in places far away. That happens locally, because of alcohol and other drugs, gangs, and so forth and so on. We're just seeing an increase in all of that.
We are. That's true.
We're at the end of our show.
Oh, wow.
How
It
does
seems like
time
everybody's so quick.
fly?
So, Pastor Stiggers, if you had to say something to encourage people that are dealing with grief, what would you say to them right now?
Well, I would say be patient with yourself. Things may not get back to normal, but there's something called a new normal. God has the unique ability to help us to live with our grief. We can, just like we live with other things,
Yes.
we learn to live with our grief. And I would say the big three: eat right, exercise,
Yes.
don't be a loner, connect to people that you love.
Yes. Yes.
Those things that replenish you, try to embrace those things. Things that wear you out and deplete you and drain you.
Yes.
Try your best to stay away from them.
Yes, absolutely.
And I pray, listen, it's not a fun thing. I pray that God be with you, in which he will be.
Amen.
I would like to say just one last thing before we go. Even though Pastor Stiggers had talked to us about the many different things that a person can do, you know, to go as they're going through grief. But another thing, if all those things of meditating, replenishing yourself, all those things, do not seek professional help.
Yeah.
Seek some professional help because sometimes things can be so deep. Don't get me wrong, prayer is always in order.
Yes,
Prayer
yes,
changes
yes.
things. But seek professional
Absolutely.
help because sometimes you need to get that. This is something that cannot just happen overnight.
Yes.
And you may need to seek that professional help. So don't ever hesitate to do it. That's been taboo a lot of times, sometimes in our communities, not to do so. Oh, I'm going to go home and handle myself. You know, those some other sayings that people say, you know, you know, you'll make it through. It'll be all right after a while. Well, after a while may not be right.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So you might
How long
need to
is
seek
after a while?
how long is
Yes.
after a while. So you might need to seek that
Ask
professional help.
somebody.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us for this segment of You Better Say That talk show. You can see my sister on YouTube or Facebook. Join her by just chiming in.
You better say that. The best talk show, you better say that. The